Rangers have done it. They've defeated PSV, and that means they will also be going into the Champions League. They will be joining their fellow Glaswegian team, Celtic, their old firm rivals, and we will have two Scottish teams in Europe's elite competition for the first time in 15 years. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Football. What better way to celebrate the rebirth of Scottish football? Scottish football on the rise, and what better way to celebrate it than to take a closer, in-depth look at the possible Champions League draw for both Rangers and Celtic. So what we have right here is a Champions League simulator. You can see we've got the pot 1 teams, the pot 2 teams, the pot 3 teams, and the pot 4 teams. Pot 4 is the pot that both Rangers and Celtic will be going into. Rangers, a little bit unfortunate, had Benfica lost their Champions League playoff. Rangers would have actually had moved into pot 3, and that could make a massive difference when you look at some of the pot 3 teams that you want to avoid. And I know Rangers beat Dortmund last year, but Dortmund are a team you'd want to avoid. Same goes for Inter Milan, same goes for Napoli, same goes for Bayer Leverkusen. And Benfica, let's be real, they're not that bad either. I mean, pot 3's got a lot of good teams in there. But anyway, what we're going to do is here, we're going to simulate the draw. And this is basically just a bit of a fantasy draw. We're going to see what Rangers and Celtic get, what groups they get in the fantasy draw, the simulated draw. And then after that, we are going to look in depth at pot 1, pot 2, pot 3, and we're going to create the best possible group and also the worst possible group for both old firm teams. Now, when we do that, we'll just do the group for both of them at the same time because they're both in pot 4, therefore they can both get the exact same team. So it'd be different if Rangers were in pot 3, their best and worst possible group would look different for Celtics, but because they're both in the same pot, the best and worst possible group should be the same, if you know what I mean. But yeah, let's start this draw then. Here we go. Let's pick a ball. Man City in Group A. We've got Paris Saint-Germain in Group B. We're going to quickly skip through the first picks because they don't really matter. So there you go. We've picked all the pot 1 teams. It is the teams from what I believe is the 6 highest leagues in the world. And then you got the Champions League winners and you have the Europa League winners. But because Real Madrid won the Champions League, I believe then Spain do not get a selection. So no, I'm not even sure how it works, guys, but anyway, here we go. Let's move into pot 2 then. Some big teams in here. We've got Chelsea, so they can go into any group apart from Group A. And Chelsea go into Group F, so Chelsea and Real Madrid. What a group that is. Looking pretty tasty right there. And we've got Sevilla, so they can go into any group apart from Group F. And they're going into Group B, so PSG and Sevilla. Is that a group already that... Is it a favourable group? Is it a group that Rangers and Celtic would be looking for? I mean, PSG are tough, but Sevilla probably one of the weaker pot 2 sides, so potentially. Up next, we've got Juventus, who are not that good at the moment. Let's be real here. Juventus kind of struggling. They can only go in Group G or Group H, though, for some reason. Not too sure why that is, but here we go. They went into Group H along with Porto. Straight away, I'm thinking if I'm Rangers or Celtic, I might want Group H. Juventus are really struggling. They're not the side they used to be a few years ago. And then Porto are one of the weaker pot 1 sides. So Group H is looking very favourable. We have Atletico Madrid. They join AC Milan. Up next with Barcelona. They go in with Bayern Munich. I mean, you could imagine that 10 years ago. That would have been an insane group, Bayern and Barcelona. I mean, Bayern are still pretty good. Barca struggling, but I mean, they're still a decent side. Leipzig, they can only go in Group A. And then Tottenham, that means they're going in Group D. So there you go. Out of these groups, what's the easiest group so far? We've still got one more team to draw, Liverpool. And they go with Frankfurt. Maybe Group G, I don't know, maybe Group H, maybe Group A. Leipzig, I think, are having a really bad spell at the moment. They're not doing well in the league. Obviously, Man City or Man City. But depending on which pot 3 team goes into Group A, then potentially Rangers and Celtic would be wanting that group. But here we go. Inter Milan, they've been drawn in Group B. So that's looking a lot tougher than it was, I think, in the last round. So that's pretty difficult. Benfica go in Group A. Straight away, if I'm Rangers and Celtic, I would take that group. I would take Group A 100% right now. It's unlikely that you're going to get an easier group than that. Benfica are not Benfica are good, but I mean, they're not the team that you want to avoid the most for pot 3, and Leipzig, in my opinion, are the weakest team from pot 2, so I would just take my chances in Group A. If I was Rangers and Celtic, I would just concede that, Man City are going to win the group, and then hopefully you can maybe defeat Leipzig or Benfica for second place. But here we go. Up next, we've got Salzburg. They've went in Group G. We have Sporting. They go in Group E. Napoli up next. They go in Group C. Tough group there. Got Dortmund. They go in Group H. I mean, on paper, Group H looks good, but I mean, Dortmund aren't exactly playing at their best either at the moment. Leverkusen going Group F. I mean, that's a tough group. You would not want Group F. I know Chelsea aren't exactly, firing on all cylinders at the moment, but they're still Chelsea. No, you wouldn't want Group F. And then Shakhtar going to Group D. I don't know, would you take Group D? I'm thinking Group A. I think Group A is the group that you want. Or Group G. I mean, Group G, probably Group G, Frankfurt and Salzburg. That is probably the group that you want. But here we go then. This is where it gets interesting, guys. It is pot 4. Rangers and Celtic both in this pot. Let's find out who they're going to get in this Champions League draw simulator. Here we go. Up first is Dynamo Zagreb. They can go in any of the 8 groups. And first, they will go into Group H. So they get Porto, Juventus, Dortmund, and Dynamo Zagreb. Not a bad group there. Moving on to the next team, we get Hafia from Israel. Who are they going to get? They went into Group D. They join Ajax, Tottenham, and Shakhtar Donetsk. Interesting. Rangers and Celtic still to be drawn. Up next, we've got Victoria Pleasant. Who will they go into? What group will they join? They join Group E, Milan, Atletico, Sporting, Pleasant. So they got Rangers and Celtic still to be drawn. I'm looking at the groups. I mean, for me, I would be wanting Group A and Group G, and both those groups are still available. So interesting. Up next is Rangers. Rangers going to Group C. That is definitely not what you want if you're a Rangers fan. Don't get me wrong. You've got 3 mega ties, Napoli, Barcelona and Bayern Munich. It's 3 amazing ties, but in terms of progressing, I don't think that is a good draw for Rangers. But in terms of, big European games, it's a fantastic draw for Rangers. So it just depends on what way you look at it. Club Brugge up next. They go into Group A. That's the kind of group that you'd want, but also Group G. Definitely Group G is weaker. Here we go at Celtic, and they do get Group G. So Celtic here in the simulator go in Group G with Frankfurt, Liverpool and Salzburg. I mean, with Liverpool, they're rubbish at the moment, let's be real. Frankfurt are not hitting the heights that they were last season, and Salzburg, like I said, one of the weaker Group G teams. I mean, I think Celtic would love that draw. Personally, I think Celtic would bite your hand off for that draw, but we'll see. There's still 2 more teams to come out. Marseille going to Group F with Real Madrid, Chelsea and Leverkusen. Very tough group there. And that leaves FC Copenhagen to go into Group B. So there you go, guys. There is the draw for Rangers. It was Bayern, Barcelona, Napoli and Rangers. And for Celtic, it was Group G, Frankfurt, Liverpool, Salzburg and Celtic. So obviously, out of those groups there, Celtic definitely got the easier group. And there's no doubt about that in my mind. But when it comes to the draw, when it comes to the best case scenario for the teams, and when it comes to the worst case scenario for both Rangers and Celtic, I'm going to say best case scenario for Rangers and Celtic, pot 1, I am going to go with Frankfurt, and it is not because they beat Rangers or anything like that. I just think they are the weakest team from that pot 1. I mean, I'm looking at the other teams. I think all the other teams are, definitely stronger. Porto, maybe, Ajax. I think Celtic and Rangers they'd be happy with Porto, Ajax or Frankfurt, but I would definitely say, I would put Frankfurt probably as the best possible group for pot 1. I would go Frankfurt. Pot 2, I would go, well, that's the thing. You can't go Leipzig if you go Frankfurt, so maybe I change my mind, because Leipzig aren't. So yeah, I mean, that is tricky there, because if you take Frankfurt for pot 1, you cannot take Leipzig for pot 2. And I do think Leipzig are the easiest team in pot 2. So maybe you could take Porto for pot 1 and Leipzig for pot 2, or if we stick with Frankfurt and have to tick another team for pot 2, I'd probably go with Sevilla. So we'll maybe go Frankfurt, Sevilla. Pot 3, I would take Salzburg. So that would, for Rangers and Celtic, I would say the best possible group they could get would be Frankfurt, Sevilla, and Salzburg. And if you don't want to do that, I would say the other one would be Porto, Leipzig, and Salzburg. For me, that is the best possible group for Rangers and Celtic. And when it comes to the worst possible group, man, there's so many different combinations because there's so many good teams spread out among the first 3 pots. For me, it's either Man City or Real Madrid, but because of Real Madrid's success in the Champions League, because of let's be real, they win it almost every season, and Man City have never won it, so I would say for pot 1, it's Real Madrid. Then from pot 2, I would go... it's difficult here. You go for... You can't take... it's straight... I would maybe... Honestly, on current form, I'd maybe say Tottenham. But if Liverpool can hit their heights, then it is Liverpool. But so maybe I would say... worst possible group for the Old Firm. I'd go Real Madrid, Liverpool, and from pot 3... I would take Inter Milan. So, guys, that is the worst possible group, in my opinion, for the Old Firm. Real Madrid, Liverpool, and Inter Milan. Let me know what you guys think down below. Looking forward to the draw. Absolutely cannot wait. Going to maybe try and cover it. Maybe we'll try and do a live stream when the draw gets made. Who knows, guys? But anyway, that is it. Hopefully, would you take this draw? If you're a Rangers fan, I'm going to assume you wouldn't, unless you want the big ties, the big European nights. If you're a Celtic fan, I think you'd be very, very happy with this draw. It would be hard to get a better draw than this, put it that way. I do think, because in my opinion, you're getting the weakest team from pot 1 and the weakest team from pot 3. Now, you can argue you're getting the strongest team for pot 2, but I would take that group. If I was a Celtic fan, I would definitely take that group. Anyway, guys, that's it for Fall Flip. But we'll be back later on with the Champions League draw and more reaction to it. Until then, though, peace.